What's going on, Lions fans? Welcome to the Pride of Detroit YouTube channel. I'm Miko, joined once again by Morgan Cannon. And like I said, this is POD, the place where you find all of your Lions content, analysis, and so much more. Today, we are going to be doing just that, analyzing the Tennessee Titans and what they do well, or maybe not even necessarily what they do well exactly, but again, some opportunities that the Lions have to exploit some of the things that they are doing defensively in their Week 8 matchup against the Titans. Morgan, this is a team that is currently 1-5, and they're every bit of 1-5. I mean, you look at how they've played so far in the season. They had that first game against the Bears. Not a very pretty game by either team, but again, the Bears came out of there with a win. They then go on to play the Jets and the Packers. Start out the season 0-3. Eventually get a pretty favorable matchup against a Miami's Dolphins team that had lost Tua Tagovailoa at that time, with that being their lone win of the season. And since then, they're once again back kind of to their losing ways, dropping a game to the Colts and to the Bills. So this is again, not a good football team, but I think you said this last week when you and I were talking about this team, like this still to you can kind of have the writings of a trap game on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the NFL, right? It's a tired saying, and you probably heard it before, but like, this ain't college, man. Like, everybody gets paid. You know what I mean? Like, These guys get paid just like the Lions get paid. Now, are the organizations in a different place? A little bit.
Yeah.
Right now, offensively, they've had struggles, man. Defensively, they've got some guys. We're going to get into that, but to put it nicely, the offense has had their issues. Will Levis has been a turnover machine. Let's see, he's thrown 7 interceptions. It's pretty tough. I can't even find his fumbles either, but he's been very memeable. Turned the ball over a lot, so it sounds like we're going to get Mason Rudolph. You guys should be familiar with him from that abysmal game that the Lions tied with them. What was that, 2020, Miko? 2021?
2021, I believe. Yeah, that was Campbell's
first year.
Yeah.
Yeah, golly. So it's time for some get back against Mason Rudolph. But yeah, the offense, we'll say, lacks teeth. But at the end of the day, it's still the NFL. And if the Lions don't come ready to play, the Titans can make some things happen. They were up 10-0 against the Bills before the Bills scored 34 straight points.
I was going to say, that was one of the games that I watched film on, and
it's brutal.
Like, and to your point, right? Like that defense really kind of held things in check for them early on until Josh Allen kind of got things cooking and got things going with those receivers. But yeah, I mean, like you said, the offense doesn't quite have the teeth that you would expect it to. Part of that is because they've been kind of pulling some of their own teeth, right? Trading away DeAndre Hopkins this week. So that's one of their more talented skill positions kind of out. I know Calvin Ridley is currently dealing with an injury, and I think he missed practice today once again. Treylon Burks is someone that they drafted a few years ago that still hasn't quite hit his stride, and he's kind of like that move receiver. They try to use him in a lot of different ways. But I mean, I think like the bulk of their offensive impact so far, Morgan, has come from Tony Pollard, which like when Tony Pollard has been on, like he's been very, very good. That still doesn't quite concern me with the Lions because much like with the Titans being one of the better run defenses, the Lions are right up there as well as one of the better run stopping teams. So if that's their only true option, like again, I kind of feel pretty good if you're the Lions defense rolling into that matchup.
Yeah, and Tony Pollard was a really dynamic runner, as soon as a few years ago, and still a really good player. But the offensive line, like Tennessee's got some nice pieces. They got Latham and Skoronski on the left side, which I like that duo. Give them some time to learn. The offensive line's tough coming from college, man. Like You're asked to do a lot. You're blocking the best of the best on a weekly, down by down basis. So they've got some pieces. Cushenberry at center, but they're again not playing very well right now. Levis, before he got hurt, was sacked 15 times. So that's quite a bit. That's quite a bit.
That's a lot of hits. That's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of, again, not being able to get comfortable and get into a rhythm either. There's very few quarterbacks in this league that can, operate at a high level under that much duress.
Right. It's tough ask.
Yeah. But like you said, it's a different story. We both said it's a different story when you flip over to this defense, right? You and I were both like going through the roster. There's a number of guys on this defense that we both like, starting with Jeffrey Simmons in the middle. T'Vondre Sweat is a defensive tackle that they drafted this year out of Texas. That dude is a monster. Like, he is going to be one of those really good defensive tackles for years to come. Arden Key is a guy who's been in the league for a while. bounced around a little bit, but has been productive in a lot of places that he's been. You have Harold Landry at the other edge position. Amani Hooker in the back end. Our old friend Quandre Diggs is also over there playing safety as well. And then at the corner position, you have L'Jarius Sneed on one side, and then I am blanking on who the other corner.
Jarvis Brownlee Jr. And then they'll have Daryl Baker Jr., 22 out of Georgia Southern. So they'll mix it up, man. But yeah, that defense, like their front seven, I like. Devondre Sweat, you mentioned it, man, 362 pounds. That's what he's listed at his PFF. So I bet you that man's like a biscuit away from 370 most days. I bet you that's a big boy. And it's fun watching him on tape. If you guys want to look for like a little mini battle to watch within the game this weekend, I'd watch Frank Ragnow and Graham and hopefully Zeitler working against Devondre Sweat and Jeffrey Simmons, because that's a lot of man in there. Okay. And that'll be fun. And that's a big reason why Tennessee is the way they are against the run. So in EPA per rush, they are third. Steelers are first, Vikings are second, and the Titans are third. So pretty impressive. And you see why when you look at their personnel and then you turn on the tape. Devondre Sweat gets doubled a lot, and very similar to DJ Reader, he does not get moved a lot. He's pretty locked in, bro.
That kid, that dude is a big man. Like, it's impressive to watch. Going through the tape of, again, that Colts game and going through that Bills game, like, they double both guys, which is the other thing that's crazy, because Jeffrey Simmons is someone that you can't block one-on-one either. And so their edge players get a lot of, like, one-on-one blocks because they have to take care of both guys in the middle. And again, it's something that's kind of helped them. And I think for most of the season, Oregon, I think they've done well against the run primarily, though, and I think this is similar to what we talked about when we were discussing Minnesota. They haven't gone against that many great rushing offenses, right? And the ones that they have gone against that are pretty good, they've given up yardage to. They went against the Jets, they gave up 101. They went up against the Packers, gave up 188, gave up 106 to the Dolphins, right? And even gave up 80 to the Colts. So I think you start, Detroit coming in, I think it'll still be tough, but I could see a very similar game plan to how they attacked Minnesota. And this could be another really big week for Ja, because when watching the tape, if your running backs are decisive and are able to hit holes quickly, you have a lot of opportunities to break some runs off. They've given up some pretty big runs in this short amount of time in the season. Again, containing it for the most part in a lot of these games, but they'll let off a 30 to 40 yard run at any given time.
And I think one way, I'm glad you said the thing about Ja, because I think, and David too, Montgomery, I think the Lions may, if I was thinking the way Ben Johnson thinks, maybe try to run out of like 11 personnel, spread them out a little bit, just because they are so tough the middle, especially if they're in their base defense, right? If they're in their base defense, they're in that 3-4, and that's when you have Sweat, Simmons, and usually Sebastian Joseph Day on the field at the same time for your 3 down linemen. So those are 3. It's very similar to the way the Lions operate with, like, if it were, Aleem, DJ Reader, and Paschal. Like, those are all big boys that are tough to move. So I do think that might be a little advantageous, is like getting 3 and 4 receivers on the field, spreading them out a little bit, and then trying to run out of those personnels, like get Panay into space, get Frank into space, and like you said, hit those creases and get north and south, just like Ja did against the Vikings, that one where he snatched the soul from Cam Bynum. Hopefully he's doing okay. But
yeah. And so we've basically said, like, the offense doesn't quite have the teeth that we think it does. The run defense is very good, very, very good. The pass defense, Maureen, which is the thing that we're going to jump into with the film. And I know people that are probably watching this video like, yo, I've been watching for almost 10 minutes. When are you guys going to actually start looking at some film? That's what we're going to look at. Yeah, we're trying to paint a picture here for you guys, because, again, unfortunately, we can't go through 20 plays in these videos, but we got a good handful right now that we're going to go through. And I think their pass defense is where the Lions can really take advantage of some of the things that are going on back there. Like I said, I like their safeties. Amani Hooker and Quandre Diggs are 2 really good safeties. L'Jarius Sneed, we know what type of corner he was, got paid this offseason, ended up in Tennessee after leaving Kansas City. But when you turn on the tape, and what we're going to look at are 3 plays from this Colts game, it's very just clunky at times, Morgan. Like, there are times when the secondary locks in and they seem to all be in lockstep. But when it's off for like big chunk plays. And I think the Lions, even without Jamison Williams this week, can definitely take advantage of some of those plays.
For sure. I'm like, if we're talking middle of the road and can definitely be exposed, and this is a good one. Like you said, these three plays are right in a row. So I thought this was a brilliant illustration of like what you could be working against. And I will say, when you watch them on tape, if they have to cover for like any length of time, that's when things can get pretty hairy for them. Like if their pass rush doesn't get home, which it's a pretty good pass rush. It's not anything extraordinary just now. If they don't get home, stuff like this can happen. This is just missed them, Richardson.
Yeah, and this is
Flacco.
It's actually Flacco. And so this is like, right. That's the reason I wanted to pull this tape too, because it's like, it's not like you're getting like top tier quarterback play and top tier wide receivers getting open. These are some fairly simple concepts that are just, again, the communication isn't there. The technique isn't quite, there. And big plays are happening here. So Titans start out with a 2-high safety look. Like I said, you have Amani Hooker and Quandre Diggs at the top here, like off coverage at the corner position. And once the ball is snapped, they kind of roll Morgan into like what looks to be like a cover 3 type of coverage where the corners start to drop back. The safety over at the top drops down at the robber position. And you have your linebacker or nickel, I believe that is here, that kind of tries to cover the flat here. And essentially nobody takes account for Ashton Dulin as he's basically running down the field. He gets like a little bit of a bump, but other than that, he doesn't get picked up as he starts to kind of run this 9 route down the field. And if this ball just has a little more touch on it or maybe a little more air underneath it, this is 6.
Yeah, and the Lions use a ton of motion as like a man into the film. That's definitely something that pops up quite a bit for Tennessee is they'll give up some chunk plays because they're just not really disciplined or sound on the back end, especially when the timer starts ticking up there a little bit. That's when things get really hairy for them.
Absolutely. And so, like you pointed out, right, the next couple plays that we're going to look at are literally like one after another. So that was 2nd and 10, Titans at the 44-yard line, or the Colts at the 44-yard line of the Titans. This is 3rd and 10, and it's, again, similar type of coverage, but again, some of the same type of mistakes that we're seeing where it's just not being communicated well. Again, this time it's a little bit more of a single high safety look. You have Amani Hooker coming down close to the line of scrimmage. You have L'Jarius Sneed at the top of the screen playing corner, playing off coverage. And then they have their second corner down here, kind of playing more in a press man position here. But it's a lot of the same situation where you have Mo Alie-Cox in the slot here closest to the left tackle and just, again, doesn't get challenged off the line, is able to have a free release, and is able to work himself to the middle of the field where it's just a simple pitch and catch.
Yeah, and this is another, because I think they're trying to show that they're in man to try to disguise it, but obviously Flacco wasn't having any of it because this is easy pickings, So the Colts, yeah, just easy, man. You got a drag underneath, grabs a couple sets of eyes, and then Mo Alie-Cox is able to run the inbreaker just right behind, And that's where, if you want to talk about where Goff is elite, is throwing those layered throws over the middle of the field, just like this, man. I think he could do that. I think you could blindfold him and he could do that because he's so elite at this, man. Just layering in, getting it over the linebackers, but in front of the safeties, or what have you. So, yep, I like seeing this because this is easy, and this is a Sam Laporta.
I was literally waiting. Yep, I was waiting for you to get there because this is. We talked about Ja potentially being in line for a big game when it comes down to running the ball if they utilize the Lions in that way. But with these types of coverages, and again, the Titans being a little slow to react in some of their adjustments or just not communicating well, Sam Laporta, who's had a very slow start to the year so far, like this could be a big game for him, not just because of how Tennessee plays defense, but again, we talked about J-Mo not being available for this game. So who starts to get more of those targets? It's going to be Amon-Ra, of course, but Sam Laporta also probably becomes a higher priority in terms of getting the ball to him in the middle of the field and in some of these types of plays.
You got to make it a priority, in my opinion, because they're pretty good. Like Sneed's a really good corner. So, you're going to have to move people around and kind of manufacture some, getting open because you don't want to just rely on winning one-on-ones because you need to, in my opinion, you want to get on these guys quickly, all right? Like
Yep.
Don't give them any hope that they can come in the toughest place in the NFL and steal a win over arguably the best team in the NFL. We don't need to have any of that on them early and
Yep.
put your foot on their throat.
No, absolutely. But yeah, Morgan, like with this play here, there's nothing really tricky going on here. This is, again, just poor communication, poor understanding of who is responsible for which man. And Josh Downs is able to get a simple out and up on Kenneth Murray Jr. and is wide open for this touchdown. But we have plenty of other really good route runners on this team. We're going to take this matchup every single time.
Yeah, you got to. And this is a gimme. This is almost like, where football is kind of becoming basketballish, like you're hunting matchups. And Kenneth Murray Jr. is a pretty good player against the run when you look at the film. But in terms of, do you want him trying to stay with Jahmyr Gibbs in the open field? Probably not, because that's going to be the result, more often than not, right?
Yeah. And the one thing that we didn't talk about on any of those three plays, Morgan, is like, it's not like Joe Flacco was under a ton of pressure. He basically like just hung back there, waited for routes to develop and hit his man in stride. And if you give Jared Goff the way he's been playing the last few weeks, that type of pacing where he's able to just be comfortable, let his guys hit his mark, and he is able to let the ball fly, like the Lions will start rolling in the passing game. That's just another thing that you just can't afford to have. You're going to want to be trying to get early pressure, getting him off his spot, making him have to freelance a little bit. And if they're not able to do that, like I said, it's going to be a really long day for the Titans.
Yeah, I think if you're the Titans, you almost have to just kind of hope that you make the Lions one-dimensional. And then even still, it might be kind of tough just to keep pace. But, like we talked about, where there's a will, there's a way. So Lions got to come ready to go. I imagine they will. Dan Campbell doesn't play, in my opinion, with he'd already talked about, he's like, I think he called this defense the best the Lions have seen thus far. And I was like, okay, that's pretty.
And I think from a talent perspective, because I know when you and I talked about the Vikings, right? Like as good as they were, one of the things that we went back and forth on is like, as far as like the actual quality of talent, I do think you could look at the Titans and be like, hey, there's a lot of talent. Like you said, especially in that front seven, there's a lot of really like high impact players and that defense. And so it becomes a thing of like, hey, don't let their record fool you. Like these guys can show up at any given day and really wreck your game plan, much like they were doing to the Bills last week. Like you said, 10-0 for a good portion of that game. And that's an offense that has Josh Allen quarterbacking it, right? And they had just gotten Amari Cooper. They have Keon Coleman. Like that's an offense that's just as stacked as this one is in a lot of different areas. So it's not to be cocky or to be dismissive of the Titans. It's just saying that like, hey, they do have their flaws in their defense. They do have a little bit of a lackluster offense. So as long as our defense shows up and is on their P's and Q's and, guys like Brian Branch continue to play well, guys like Aleem McNeil continue to play well, the linebackers for the Lions, both Campbell, Anzalone, and Rodriguez, like those guys continue to play well, things should go in our way, at least in being able to keep their offense at bay. And then it just becomes, Ben Johnson and this offense picking their shots and not getting overly excited and trying to do a little too much. But they let this game kind of come to them. I think the Lions, easily move to 6-1 this week.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think my score prediction was like 31-13. Lions.
Yeah, I haven't done mine this week, actually. That's why. So, but it probably is going to be something like that, right? Like,
just don't see like the defense. We talked about the defense, right? But like, if it's just on them and they're getting put on the field a ton, and the offense isn't, because I think this offense is going to have a heck of a time getting anything. And it's not like the Lions defense is playing well, but it's going to be super loud again. It might be kind of tough. This is a young offensive line that's not playing very well. And Aaron Glenn, I think, is going to be like a shark, man. I think he's going to smell blood in the water and force turnovers. That's one of the main reasons I think this will eventually get away from Tennessee pretty quickly, is I think if they turn the ball over a couple times, it's going to get pretty rough, I think, pretty quickly.
Yeah. And I mean, I like your score prediction of what did you say, 31-13? I might, I'm probably going to put mine in. It'll probably be like 34-12, 34-9. Like I think it's going to be ugly. Like I think they might be able to get into field goal range a couple times, but like outside of maybe some help from officials and like pass interference, like I do think they're going to have a hard time getting to the Lions red zone on a consistent basis. So
I think so too, man. Yeah.
So that's pretty much going to do it, though, guys, for our analysis of the Tennessee Titans in this Lions matchup. Let us know in the comment section below, what are you most concerned about when it comes to the Titans? Do you think that maybe we're just underestimating them as a team? Or do you think that like the Lions actually have more to contend with than we're actually giving the Titans credit for? And like always, if you are looking for more additional Lions content, you can always go check out prideofdetroit.com. There are new articles being updated over there on a daily basis. So definitely go check those out. Support our writers over there. And like always, if you are new to this channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Those things help out this channel immensely, and they also make it easier for you to find our content whenever you come over here to YouTube. So with all that said, I'm Miko. He's Morgan. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.